Chapter 1. In a small Japanese apartment, we see Toru and 3 others getting ready to go into the dungeon, but before that, we look back on how we got to this moment. In a realtor's office, Toru is questioning the cheap price of an apartment, asking if it has ghosts appearing. The realtor brushes him off, stating there are no ghosts to worry about, but that there has been slimes and goblins appearing. Before Toru is able to question the absurdity of what he just heard, the realtor hands him the contract, getting his name and seal on it. Toru contemplates that as a high school dropout with a sad part-time job as a warrior, he couldn't turn down the charms of the special condition and quickly entered the contract, the special condition being that his apartment was connected to a dungeon. Toru reflected on the contract as he was handed the keys by his realtor, but as soon as he received the keys, the realtor was running away in the opposite direction. Toru began to unpack as soon as the movers delivered his things. After it was dark, Toru exited the apartment only to find that he was in a seemingly endless stone room. After this, the realization finally hit him about comments the realtor made about slimes and goblins. This place is a dungeon. Toru thought to himself, if this dungeon can be classed as part of his apartment. Thinking this, he closed the front door and sat at the table, wondering if he will be able to return back to his own world. Then he noticed something outside his window, light coming from the streets. As Toru opened the window, he saw Japan, the same streets of Tachikawa City in Tokyo he was on a few hours earlier. Thinking to himself, Toru began to understand that only the front door was connected to the dungeon. Which means the only demerit to this apartment is he has to now enter and leave through the window. Having a 2-bedroom apartment in the city for 3,000 yen a month, Toru began to think that this contract might have been a good thing, because dungeon exploration is a man's romantic dream. Toru decides to leave his apartment to get supplies ready to go explore. After getting back, Toru managed to get himself a helmet with a light and a climbing axe. Toru put his head to the front door, listening to anything on the other side, but heard nothing. As he walked through the door, he saw just how huge the space is with the help of his helmet light. As he began to look around, Toru worried about goblins appearing from the shadows of the pillars. As he thought this, he heard something from the direction of the pillars. Toru froze, thinking it must be goblins, but then realized even if it is goblins, he can just run back into his apartment. With rediscovered confidence, Toru began sneakily making his way to the noise. Peeking around a pillar, Toru notices a humanoid shape. Thinking the goblin appears weakened on the ground, Toru approaches only to see it is not in fact a goblin but a human girl wearing a classic female knight's attire you would see in a fantasy game. Seeing the girl, he notices she is crying motionless. Worried it may be a trap, he hesitates but then decides he can't just leave her alone. Seeing no shadows in the surroundings and a sturdy iron door on a wall further in, Toru thinks that it must be a trap, and if he gets closer, goblins will jump out of the door. To test his theory, he throws a small rock over towards the girl. However, no goblins appear. The girl cries out, "Stop!" Toru is surprised he can understand what she is saying, as he can't completely understand what is said, but in his head he understands its meaning. Toru asks the girl if she is okay, and the girl begs him to not come closer. Toru realizes that his thoughts are also being sent across to her. Toru states he is coming close, which the girl once again states don't come closer. Toru asks the girl if she can move, and she says she can. Toru, realizing she can't, tries to help her, but before he can, the girl begins to scream, "Please don't essay me, don't kill me." She begs him for her life, offering to clean and wash whatever he wants, and to please not kill her, Goblin-sama. As she says this, Toru realizes she thinks he is a goblin, likely due to not being able to see his face as the light is on. As he turns it off, he leans forward to show her his face, telling her to look closely. Her seeing this scary face looming over her causes her to faint, making her pee herself. Toru thinks it would be dangerous to leave her like this, and even more shameful if people found her, so he decides to carry her into his apartment. As he carries her on his back, he feels the wetness on her and states it feels gross. Being unable to carry her shield, he decides to leave it behind. Toru hopes that if she rests in the apartment she will be able to recover her strength. Not having put the bed up yet, Toru opts to put her in the Japanese-style room. After placing her on the tatami mat, Toru says to himself that it will definitely be sexual harassment if he takes her armor and wet clothes off. Looking at her, he notices how pretty and elegant she is, describing her like a well-featured doll. As he thinks this, he begins to get sleepy and falls asleep on top of the girl's thighs. As he wakes hours later, Toru hears a voice saying, "You've woken up." Toru wonders when he ever got such a nice pillow. so soft and warm, thinking it's a bit smelly but it feels nice. Sitting up, he is shocked that it wasn't a pillow but a female knight's thighs. Toru says he's sorry to the knight, explaining he dozed off. Surprisingly, the female knight says sorry for waking him when he was sleeping so comfortably. Calling him Great Sage Sama, she says it is unavoidable when in such a comfortable and snug place. Toru says, "Great Sage Sama, is that me?" and says it's better than being called a goblin. The girl then explains that she was unable to see his face and that he was speaking the language of monsters, so apparently Japanese is the language of monsters in their world. Toru then clarifies that he isn't a great sage. The girl is confused and states she thought he was, as he was staying in the deepest parts of the dungeon, so she thought he was a great sage in seclusion. She is also in amazement by the moderately stiff bed that doesn't change no matter where she moves, and the number of elaborate dolls that she assumes are magic tools. Toru's eyes widen as she sees the otaku products. To protect his reputation, Toru now claims to be a great sage and that the dolls are definitely magic tools. The girl is happy with this, as she worried they were humans turned to dolls with black magic and that he purposely made them naked. Toru asks her if she is able to move now. The girl states she was under the effect of a powerful anesthetic and it is wearing off. She worries what would have happened if Toru hadn't saved her. She then tells Toru that he is her savior and she will do anything for him. She explains she is a knight, though a former one. Toru's mind is sent spiraling with the things he could do to her, but then gets hit with the thought of what would his grandma think of this. He begins to thank her for her offer but tells her to forget about it. However, the girl vehemently denies this request and says as a former knight she will never forget what he did for her for the rest of her life. Toru then points out they don't even know each other's names yet. The knight finally introduces herself as Arya Eldarakusu, but asks him to call her Ria. Chapter 2. Toru and Arya sit while Toru tries to pronounce her name, stating it's difficult to pronounce. Arya tells him to just call her Ria. Toru blushes at the thought of calling such a beauty by her first name. Ria then asks Toru for his name, so he tells her his name is Toru whilst he blushes, thinking it's not because he wants to be called by his first name by a girl, but of course that's the exact reason. He thinks whilst saying sorry to all the Suzuki-sans in the nation. Arya says that for Toru to have discovered such artifacts and become a great sage at his age is very uncommon. Toru, analyzing Ria, thinks that her scientific knowledge in the world where the dungeon is probably mid-level. Anyone from that world who saw this room would probably assume it was an artifact. Toru wonders how to explain being a great sage and living in such an area. He tells Ria to stop making him sound so old and refined, and then he says he was a court magician at 6 years old but he left halfway through and delved into his magic and that's why he is only 21. After listening to Toru, Ria tells Toru there is 3 years difference in their ages. Toru assumes she isn't 24, so he says, "Ria is 18? Toru questions Ria about how she was taken down by monsters with anesthesia. Ria exclaims about how scared she was, unable to move alone in the dark where she could be attacked at any time. Toru goes to run Ria a hot bath to help her get clean. Ria is shocked at the idea of a bath in a dungeon, thinking it's a bad idea. Toru laughs to himself that the first person using the bath in his new place will be a girl. Toru walks back in on Ria kneeling with her head to the ground begging for forgiveness, having realized she peed herself when she passed out. Ria notices that Toru's shirt is wet. Toru explains that it happened when he carried her into the apartment. Ria exclaims that due to this she can't be a bride anymore. Toru seizes the opportunity to say that if she can't be a bride he will accept her. Ria gets flustered, questioning what he's saying. Toru says it was a joke. Ria gets annoyed over this and gives Toru a terrifying look that makes him more scared than the dungeon did. After this, Ria heads towards the bath and Toru follows to show her how to use it, but before that, he takes her to the main entrance and shows her where to leave her shoes. Then he suggests she may feel more comfortable if she takes her breastplate off. Ria's arms still being numb asks Toru for help with the clasps. Now with her breastplate off they head to the bathroom. Ria looks excitedly at the bath, surprised that one could exist in the dungeon. Toru explains how to use the bath and asks if Ria understands. She says yes, that baths exist in nobles' mansions and palaces, so she has heard of them. Toru then asks if she knows what a shower is, and she apologizes, saying no, she hasn't heard of one. Toru says it's an artifact he created that can produce hot and cold water using fire and water magic. Ria gets excited about the sage's item used for relaxation instead of battle. Toru then shows her soap and shampoo. Ria is surprised by a liquid form of soap and it is fragrant as well. Ria gets even more excited to try it all out. Toru heads to the living room so that Ria can use the shower. He checks if he has spare clothes to give her whilst thinking maybe he could say he only has spare shirts before once again remembering how it would make grandma cry. He then brings her a change of clothes and hears weird noises coming from the shower. Thinking it could be a goblin or slime, he bursts into the shower. Only to find out that Ria accidentally turned the shower to maximum pressure and then in her shock turned the temperature to cold. Toru explains why this happened to a crying Ria and then quickly covers his eyes as he realizes she is naked. Before Toru can leave, Ria jumps on his back crying out that she was so scared. Toru gets hit with the realization that Ria has just experienced a near-death experience in the dungeon and now she's in a place she knows nothing about. She begs Toru to stay just for a little while. Toru sits down just outside the shower helping Ria feel safe again. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.